We're gonna change it up a little bit. This book, okay? I've been doing a lot of military history stuff from the perspective of like the other side, the losers, because thank God the winners of 80 years ago made this wonderful world we live in now. But I remember this. Explain what this is.
Okay, so when I was living with Sensei Steve, he had a picture of a ship that his uncle, Cox Jansen, okay, it was Sensei Steve Jansen. He's an excellent karate instructor that rented to me, despite neighbors complaining about
Oh yeah,
me being a bad person.
I remember that.
For 8 years, great guys offered numerous times for me to come back there. Okay, and run from him. He's introduced me to wargaming. He had some materials from his uncle. His uncle was, he was the hero of the family, and he did not live long. He died soon after he returned
Oh man.
from World War II. He was a coxswain. He would be the guy that would steer the boat, into shore to drop guys off and pick them up. And there was a typed, it was like 8 pages, 4 pages. There was a typed version of a diary that had been handwritten by a Japanese petty officer, okay, whose name I forgot. Now, I wanted to do something to justify it. It was really touching. One of the passages was they were digging shelters for the South. This is during the period when he was writing about how confident they were that they were going to be fighting these cowardly, subhuman, Americans who, would surely run away because they had no courage.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're defending an island.
I wish they had.
We didn't even know what island it was. Scott Cole figured all this stuff out. He was a reader that had been in the Navy and is a history buff, a war gamer who we never were able to get together. At one point, we were going to get together and do some war gaming. Okay, but it didn't work out. It was my fault. It wasn't his fault. So something happened with my end, and he helped check the translation, and also a Twitter person called Wrath of None, who I actually wrote a book for on his request, my childhood autobiography, a childhood memoir. This is a man that's into urban architecture, history, who for some reason reads me and likes my stuff, even though I just write about the creatures that infest the urban architecture that he likes so much. He apparently lives in Japan and is fluent in the language, and he did some research on the ground to see if there was any family surviving
Right.
of this person. And, I just typed it. I mean, I was a total goon in this. I was able to make a couple of half intelligent comments, I think. Scott did the real work. The one thing, there was a part where they were being hunted by the natives.
Oh.
So Scott immediately said, so this is not these other islands you're thinking of.
Right.
This has got to be something down near New Guinea. Well, 2 years after this book came out, I was in Utah with a Mormon family. And the one young man was showing me his grandfather who raised him, showing me his package that he got from the LDS church when he went to fight in the Pacific. And the Mormon church even wrote a booklet called Sand Under the Rails that was why Mormons should go fight in this war for the United States government. And he also had a sword that he had taken from a Japanese officer who he killed in hand-to-hand combat. He was the 50 gunner and a mechanic on a PT boat. When the PT boats got sunk at the end of the war, he was allowed to go back on board and get the commander's journal. because he was cited in it for heroism. They got boarded. They were stationed in New Guinea, and they operated in this area of Biak Island,
Mm.
where Japanese soldiers were actively eating the natives. There was some Japanese guy did a documentary
Oh,
on
they
this
eat.
like 20
Oh,
years ago.
like
They were
fire
actually
them.
hunting them and eating. It was not kosher to eat the enemy, but it was kosher to eat the natives.
Like,
The Japanese would not eat their own soldiers. They would not eat Americans, Australians, English, Dutch,
oh,
but they would eat the natives. Well, the natives were also eating them.
oh yeah. Well, then
Okay,
yeah.
and because that's what they
It's
do.
like firing the
Well,
plane.
this man defended against a boarding party. He used an M1 carbine to block the stroke of the katana, and he used his 45 auto to
Oh,
shoot him.
okay.
Okay, so he took the katana. He's cited for heroism in this. The headhunters loved this dude
Oh,
because
man.
he's like the only American that they knew that fought in hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and he's a big stud. He's a strapping guy. The Mormon guys all look like Vikings.
Yeah, they're big people.
From that area, anyhow, because these are the mountain people. Well, he was brought presents by, and there were pictures of the guys that brought him presents, and the presents that they bought him. The headhunters brought him Japanese heads,
Oh, jeez.
and
Yeah.
personally gave them to him, not to his commanding officer.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was afraid to disrespect the gift, so he took them with him. But he's a religious Christian, so as soon as they get out of sight of land, he dumped the heads over.
Yes.
He didn't want them.
Right.
Okay, they were full size. They weren't even shrunken, but they were Japanese heads. So that's the one part, and that's something I didn't run into until after this project was already done. So I don't think there's any citation in this book about that.
Right.
But it's a real sad story because it's a young soldier that's never seen combat, and then he's continually disillusioned about the fate of the army that he's a part of, and at the end, when it seems like there's hope, when they just have this one other river to cross, the Americans are already there waiting for them.
Yeah.
And they're being hunted by the natives. They're out of ammo. They're sick and they're dying.
So,
And you got this superior force waiting for them. And that is at the edge of the island. And that's probably where Cox Jansen or one of his buddies found this young petty officer's war diary.
yeah, because I remember the diary. You see how they start running out of supplies. And they start to realize that this is not going well. But the guy's stoically trying to still be hopeful and do his duty. And then eventually, the entries just stop because they probably, like you said, if they ran, at the end when they run into the Americans, what are you gonna do? You're gonna fix bayonets and you're just gonna go. What are you gonna do? You're gonna go at it. Some might have surrendered, but not a lot of prisoners were taken. I keep bringing that up because I'm still convinced a lot more Japanese guys put their hands up than people were told, and they just got friggin' whacked. Now you can say, well, yeah, it's payback, but I don't see it that way.
The thing I found interesting about this, because it's not really a war that I really cared about. Okay.
You're sick of that war.
Yeah, well, I'm sick. I still resent it when I go to a history. So I go to the best used history bookstore, and it's 60 feet of World War II.
Yeah.
And then, like, all of ancient history is like one little section.
It's the only war that ever happened.
So I get sick of that. But I have read over 50 individual books on World War II. And I have read the complete Marshall Cavendish Military Encyclopedia of World War II in 25 volumes. I read it like 5 times when I was a kid.
Yes.
It was the first set of books I could read when I learned how to read when I was about 10.
Wow.
My parents got it for me for a Christmas present. It's like this big. It's still at Sensei Steve's house. And I recall that the whole story of World War II from the Allied perspective was what a horror story winning the largest industrial war, in human history was. This is what a bigger horror story it is. losing such a war. Okay, and it's, you know, it's really, to me, something as big as World War II should finally transcend good guy, bad guy. Who's the good guy? Who's the bad guy?
Oh,
I mean, it's
come on.
the thing was just so ridiculous. Okay, it's.
Wait, you mean these maniacs didn't want to take over the entire world or something? They just wanted to
It's just
rule the area they were in, control their own destiny.
The amount of resources, the amount of people, and everything. I really, I think it was a combination of collective insanity, a collective suicide impulse that's maybe related to the fact that young people don't even want to have kids anymore.
Well,
okay. But on the other hand, I also think that there might have been a nefarious guiding hands.
No.
Behind the scenes.
Are you serious?
That just wanted as many working class people as possible of all nations to be annihilated, because they were already looking towards an information age, and the really smart people already knew that this wasn't going to be the first great industrial war, it was going to be the last great industrial war, that the industrial age was already passing, and this was its death throes. I think it was a way to kill as many. In ancient war, the best men did not die. In this type of warfare, the best men are who die. That's why as soon as a guy does good in the battle, like Audie Murphy, yank him out of there, because he's not going to survive the next battle. Because that was just
it was a totally, dysgenic wars, the 20th century wars.
So I think that this is, if anything, is the conspiracy against the human race. Like Ligotti says, I think evidence package number one would be World War II, and the fact that it was such a big atrocity that no one person can even have a command of the material.
Wow.
You can't. There's just too much stuff. You can't read about every battle. Yeah. There's just.
It's almost like instead of being under documented, the over documentation of it is almost used to make it impossible to read.
So this is an understatement. This man's few thousand words, from his diary, I think is the appropriate type of history that should survive such a thing. Yeah. Because the commentary-based history and everything, it just binds us to the larger body of history that came before it. Yeah. And it steers us into misreading everything that's happened since.
That war is the Lord. It's sort of like the Lord of the Rings mythology of our time, right? Except of course the good guys won according to the people that wrote it.
Even in wargaming, most wargamers will only play World War II games. Period.
Are we segueing? Are we segueing?
So we should maybe
boy,
go to the next one.
Right. Always the war. Always the war.